I had my first ever live stream on November 2017. I remember telling myself if I ever got back into gaming, I was gonna stream. Now that I was in college and my time was way more limited, I didn't just want to waste it. I thought that I would be very good at streaming because I had the skills that it took. Those skills being consistency and a great conversationalist. That's it. Just those two were required to be successful. So that year, I started playing Stardew Valley and streaming almost every single day. It took me 3 months to reach 20 average viewers, and then I sat at 20 average viewers for over a year. Did not take long before I realized that I heavily overestimated my abilities, and live streaming was kind of like hard. The more I got into it, the more things I had to learn that I didn't know anything about, like networking, monetization, demographics, game performance, competition, audio setup, video setup, lighting, background, community management, and that list kind of just goes on and on. So during this period, what I was experiencing was the Dunning-Kruger effect. This effect happens when people with limited knowledge overestimate their abilities because they don't know enough about the topic to understand how much they still need to learn. How about the football fan who heavily criticizes NFL players when they couldn't do any better themselves? Or the weeb who watches subtitled shows and thinks they're ready to move and start their life in Japan? Or the economics student who takes an introductory course and suddenly feels qualified to analyze complex economic trends? How about that one childless person who believes raising kids is easy even though they've never really raised any kids for themselves? Or the fitness guru who believes they're capable of giving solid nutrition advice. Or that trust fund baby who sincerely believes making money is simple because they've never experienced financial struggle. But why does this happen? Well, there's something called the Mount Stupid graph. The x-axis represents competence and the y-axis represents confidence. Here we have Mount Stupid. This is when you first start learning something and are still quite inexperienced. Like when I first started streaming, your confidence in your abilities is at its peak while your knowledge is at its lowest. You think you know it all, but you don't know what you don't know. After you've been practicing for a while, you reach the valley of despair and start to realize that there's actually a lot that you don't know, and your confidence significantly drops. This is where many people quit, but those who push through do end up becoming very skilled. If you've ever heard of the weed out course in college, which is set up to be exorbitantly challenging with the sole purpose of getting rid of students who are not cut out for that practice, this is that. If you're able to get through the valley of despair and continue expanding your knowledge, you then reach the slope of enlightenment. And this is the point where your confidence starts to rebuild based on actual competence. If you keep going, you reach the plateau of sustainability, where the real experts lie. Your confidence and competence finally match reality, creating an equilibrium. Let's use dancing as an example. You decide you want to learn how to dance. It looks simple enough. You just have to keep up with the music and let loose. A week or two and you'll be good enough to submit your application to Dancing with the Stars. So, you go to your first dance class. As the music starts and the class begins the choreography, you realize that most of the class is off sync, in exception to the few people who are obviously not beginners. You're struggling to keep up with the music and now feeling very embarrassed and conscious of your dancing. After the class is over, your confidence is low and you have to decide whether you want to pursue dance or quit. You've arrived at the valley of despair. Let's say that you decided to stick through and continue dancing. A few months have passed, and you're now starting to grasp the fundamentals. Your body can now keep up with the beat, you're able to pull off the bounce, and you know how to 8-count. The confidence you feel now aligns with your actual skill set. Another year goes by while you're working on your dance. You've mastered the fundamentals and some advanced moves. Now you're getting into complex isolation techniques and advanced footwork. You're now aware of the effort that goes into becoming a professional dancer and where your strengths and weaknesses lie. Your skills now match up with your confidence, and you're able to appreciate the effort that goes into becoming a professional dancer. As you can see, the difference between a beginner and an expert is that beginners are not in a position to properly analyze how difficult a certain skill could be, so they often overestimate their abilities because of the lack of knowledge. So, how can we avoid falling into the trap of Mount Stupid? The answer lies in metacognition, thinking about our thinking. This concept of metacognition was defined by psychologist John Flavel in the 1970s, and yes, it literally does mean thinking about thinking. Imagine a circle called thinking. The circle gives us the ability to solve problems, remember things, make decisions, understand language, and focus our attention. It allows us to process information about the world around us. Now, imagine a second circle next to it called thinking about thinking. The circle gives us the ability to plan how we'll approach a task, check whether we're understanding something, evaluate how well we're learning, change our strategy when something isn't working, and reflect on our thoughts. These circles work together through two important connections. The thinking circle sends information to the thinking about thinking circle, which in return helps us become aware of what's happening in our mind. Then the thinking about thinking circle sends adjustments back to the thinking circle, helping us improve how we approach problems. When we rely only on the first circle without much input from the second, we might learn just a little about a topic and feel very confident, but we don't have the awareness to recognize what we don't know yet. This is what researchers call knowledge illusions, when we're not really good at knowing how much we actually know. The Dunning-Kruger effect demonstrates this perfectly. People who perform poorly on tasks often drastically overestimate their abilities because they lack the metacognitive capacity to recognize their incompetence. As research shows, the least competent individuals tend to feel the most confident in their knowledge. But when both circles work together properly, thinking about thinking forces us to question how much we really understand, if there's a gap in our knowledge, and how we can test our knowledge. This awareness helps us recognize our limitations and develop a more accurate view of our abilities. As we continue learning, this self-monitoring keeps our confidence in check until our actual knowledge catches up. In other words, this back and forth process helps keep us humble through reason and reflection. One thing I realize is that people who are really good at something create this illusion of simplicity through their effortless execution, but oftentimes it's extremely deceiving, and unless you try it for yourself, you're not really sure if your eyes are deceiving you or not. And you know what? They usually are, because what looks effortless rarely is.